Happy March Madness to all of you that celebrate. Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. We're going to break down Mel Kiper's latest big board after the first wave of NFL free agency. Of course, now we're a month almost removed from the NFL Combine. I thought it'd be a good time to just kind of reset a little bit at some of the top prospects for the Browns. Now, Cleveland picking second overall means that you really only have to pay attention to the top 5 names, but Browns also picking 33rd overall means you got to pay attention to like the 20 through 25 guys because they could fall to the end of round number 1 and early round number 2. So let's dive right into it, starting with Kiper's number 1 player. It's the same player he's had all along. That is Travis Hunter, followed by Abdul Carter. Then we get Mason Graham. Up next is, actually, before we look it up next, let's pause right here because we have spent a lot of time talking about Carter, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. I thought we could spend a little bit of time talking about Graham because that's a prospect that has a chance of coming to Cleveland, likely if the Browns move back from number 2, but we really haven't divulged much into Graham's portfolio, his profile, and who he is as a player. So let's start by talking about one of the best interior defensive linemen we've seen in the draft the last few years. I mean, he's going to go top 10, and for an inside defensive lineman, that's not too common. So why is that the case? He's not like Jalon Carter. Remember when he came out of Georgia? He was an athletic freak. I mean, an absolute specimen, made in a lab kind of guy, like every Georgia player. That's not Graham. He's extremely strong, but he doesn't have, incredible length. He doesn't maybe test through the charts when it comes to an athletic standpoint. But what he does test through the charts on, motor, effort, and strength. He is just point blank miserable to deal with for 60 minutes. That's really the best way I can sum it up. When he walks on the field, the opposing offensive line knows they are in for a hell of a day. The accolades speak for themselves. Now, when you see D tackles go early in round 1, you often think, oh, they must be a really good pass rusher because it's not too common an interior guy goes early in the draft. Don't get it twisted. Mason Graham is not some gifted pass rusher. He had 3.5 sacks last year for the Wolverines. 2 of those 3.5 came in one of their first games against Minnesota, I believe. The rest of the year, he only had 1.5 sacks. So don't look at this and think, oh, well, the reason why he's going so early in mock drafts is because he's great against the run like all DTs should be, but he also has some pass rush upside. No, I'm going to pump the brakes on that one. He is not going early in round 1 because of his pass rush upside. He is going early in round 1 because teams believe he can be an anchor in the middle of the defensive line for a decade for an NFL ball club. And right now, the Browns could use a new, younger anchor in the middle of their defensive line. They signed Malik Collins. He's 30 years old. Shelby Harris, closer to 35 than 30 years old. Mykel, second-round pick last year, but he was taken for his pass rush upside at that spot. The Browns don't really have a homegrown, say, Dalvin Tomlinson. Not that Graham's a nose tackle, because that was more of Tomlinson, but they don't have a homegrown young DT that can be there for 10 years and really just swallow up linemen. So Graham, I think, is going to play the 3 technique position. So he's not going to be a nose tackle. He's not someone like Siaka Iko, who's like 350 pounds and is just a tree stump, and that's his job, like a Vita Vea for the Buccaneers. No, he's not that, which is why personally I'm not crazy about Graham as a prospect for the Browns. Maybe I'm just not quite, I'm not seeing the hype enough, but there's very little pass rush upside for how early he's going in the draft, possibly. And he's not like a nose tackle that is going to help, stop opposing runs for a decade. He's good against the run. He's great against the run, but personally, I would not go with Mason Graham in the top 5. Moving on, at number 4, it is Ashton Jeanty. And we can pause here once more because this is a player that we just haven't done enough, discussion about. He obviously is the best running back in this draft. I don't think this is one that we should debate. I know when the draft gets here, everyone wants to stand out and everyone wants to have an unpopular opinion and go against the grain. Guys, don't overcomplicate this. Jeanty was the best running back in college football. He's the best running back in this draft, and he's going to be an incredible back for a team for a long time wherever he ends up. Now, I don't think that he should end up with the Browns. And I know the numbers are terrific, like 2,600 yards. Is that a typo? No. 7 yards a carry, 30 touchdowns. But if you've watched our videos for a while, you know I love to go back to one thing more than anything else, and that is history. Because history does not really favor teams that take a running back in the top 10 that need a teams that take a running back in the top 10 that have bigger needs. Let me explain more. Go back the last 10 years with me. Here are the 6 backs who have been taken top 10. These running backs were all pretty successful outside of probably Fournette, right? And Gurley, I guess, but that was more of the injuries. Did they make their team better? Bijan, 2 years with Atlanta, 2 straight losing seasons. He was great last year. Still finished 8-9. Saquon, we saw what he did for the Eagles. Keyword, Eagles, not for the Giants. Fournette just didn't work out, and that was more of a bust draft pick, but I didn't see that one coming. McCaffrey, fantastic for who? The 49ers. Good with the Panthers, but the Panthers weren't good with McCaffrey. Zeke, I don't want to just use this as an asterisk, but it also helped a lot that this guy named Dak Prescott was drafted at the same time, and he got off to a very hot start and is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Todd Gurley, great running back for the Rams. I don't remember them winning a ton with Gurley as their back. Like, not until 2017, 2018-ish when they got some other pieces there. But the point being, well, you can find great running backs who will be great too. Like, not bust. When you're picking that early in the draft, I think you got to attack cornerstone positions. Guys that can help quickly turn your record around. And to me, running back isn't the place to start with that. So while I believe Jeanty is going to be great, and maybe I should just stop talking right there, because if you think he's going to be great, then don't overthink it. Take the good player. I've seen one too many running backs be really good, but the team still struggle. And I don't want that to be the case for Cleveland. So we've talked a ton about Shedeur Sanders, Abdul Carter, Cam Ward. What about these other 3 players? What if the Browns decide, hey, we're not going to take Shedeur Sanders at number 2. We're going to trade out at number 2. Or they don't want to take Abdul Carter because they're concerned about the foot fracture, whatever it may be. These are like the next tier of guys, right? Really the second tier. It goes Ward, Sanders, Carter for like Browns fans' debates of who to take. And then these 3 players. I would rank them Travis Hunter, Jeanty, Mason Graham. Moving on a little bit here, we got Shedeur coming up at number 5. I'm not going to, and if you've watched our stuff for a while, you can appreciate this, rehash all the quarterback stuff here. I just feel like we can talk about different prospects. Let's keep this show on the road. Tyler Warren, Jalen Walker, Jihaad Campbell, Will Johnson round out the top 10. None of these guys scream Browns draft target to me, so we'll keep moving. Armand Membou, right tackle for Mizzou, Colston Loveland, Will Campbell. Again, none of these guys really jump out to me as prime draft targets for the Browns, so I don't want to do too much of a deep dive for a player that the Browns aren't really looking at from a position value standpoint. If I had to highlight one of these players, though, I'd go with Campbell. The only knock on him is his arms are half an inch too short. Wasn't an issue when he was a freshman at LSU starting at left tackle. I don't have an issue with Campbell's arm length. I think he's going to be a stud at the next level. And if you're looking for, hey, who could the Browns get if they were to maybe even move back further in round 1, pull off some quirky, wacky trade back into round 1, and you want a new tackle to replace Jed Wills, this would be my pick. Now, if you enjoy these types of videos, I just want to get your feedback on it. Show me by liking the video, subscribing, commenting. That way I can put more of this type of content out there for whatever you guys are searching for. Next 2 players to round out the top 15, you got Omarion Hampton and Mike Green. Mike Green led the FBS in sacks last year. If the Browns want to go edge, they're going to go Abdul Carter, and I don't think running back is the play for them at number 2 or round 1, but Hampton could be in play for them at 33. Let's keep moving. Mykel Williams, Shemar Stewart, and then coming up at 18, it is Jackson Dart. Time we talk about Jackson Dart because we've spent so much time breaking down every single piece of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward's game, we need to talk about Dart for a moment, because this is a player that the Browns maybe could be looking at in round 2 of the draft. Some people think he could sneak up into round 1. This gives me Will Levis vibes of smoke, but not a real fire around it. Now, I was having a debate with a few guys in the office before we started filming here, because one of them, Patrick Siemens, like, Jackson Dart he gives me douchebag vibes. And I'm like, is it because his name is Jackson, he spells it with an X, and he went to Ole Miss? Because if so, I think you should do a little bit more research on him. The guy's from Utah, went to USC, transferred because this coach, Lincoln Riley, came to Southern California with this quarterback named Caleb Williams, so there was no spot for Dart to start anymore. So he goes over to Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss offense, and there were a lot of criticisms about his inability to read a defense, right, and go through progressions and things like that because the candy-ass Ole Miss offense. I don't necessarily buy that too much. I think, let me reel that back in. I understand and, hear those complaints and concerns, but if you can play football, you're going to figure out the offense. Now, I think it might take Dart a year or two to develop, to really learn what it's like to read an NFL defense, and tossing him out there week 1 is not going to go well. But my evaluation of Dart, I think he's going to be like a Gardner Minshew. I think he's going to be someone that is a good backup, that when he starts, you get, some good play, but he probably shouldn't be a team starter every single week for a decade. And if you're taking a quarterback in round 1 or round 2, that is the expectation. So I know some people are falling in love with Dart. For me, I'm not seeing how Kiper goes from he's not ranked to he's number 19 when the guy hasn't played college football in 3 months now. And to me, hanging out in Indianapolis for a week and running some 40-yard dashes and drills and whatnot should not be that big of a needle mover. So I remain with Dart. Round 3 prospect for me. I'm not buying the round 1 smoke, and I think he needs a year or two to sit and learn what it's like to not play in a candy-ass Lane Kiffin offense and really dissect an NFL defense. 19 and 20, it is Tet McMillan and Malachi Starks, the Georgia safety. And then to round out 21 through 25, let's start with Nick Emanwari, the South Carolina safety, followed by pair of Buckeyes and a pair of Longhorns. We got Josh Simmons, who I think is, I wouldn't say criminally underrated, but better than what people are giving him credit for. It's the injury that people are concerned about. But at the Combine, he said he expects to be ready to roll when OTAs and things like that roll around, so that's got to be encouraging for teams. Then you got Jahdae Barron, the DB out of Texas, who played all over that defense, followed by Emeka Egbuka from Columbus and Matthew Golden from Texas. Let's talk about the last 3 players a little bit, starting with Barron, because these are guys that I want you to learn about for a potential 33rd pick in the draft. Guys that could fall out of round 1 and you're curious, hey, who's going to be the best player when day 2 starts, because the Browns have the first pick of round number 2. Barron, to me, I think would be a really fun pick for Jim Schwartz's back end. You lost Rodney McLeod to retirement. Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson took a step back last year. Denzel Ward continues to struggle with concussions and health and just staying on the field, period. Delpit did not live up to the extension he got during last season. So there are question marks, and fairly so, around this secondary. And Barron's versatility could be a huge sigh of relief. I mean, look at the safety room right now. I like Ronnie Hickman, but I would like a little bit more depth here, and I'd like some more competition. Same goes for the Browns corners. I think Greg Newsome needs to be pushed a little bit. Martin Emerson had the worst year of his NFL career in 2024. Denzel Ward is getting, not up in the age column, but he's getting older. He's been in the league now for seven years now, since 2018. So it might be time to replenish a little bit in the secondary. And at pick 33, I think Barron could fill that role quite nicely, bouncing all around the defense like he did at Texas. Now, as for the 2 wide receivers, you got Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden. Egbuka, one of the most statistically accomplished receivers at Ohio State, that is going to be a trivia stumper for people in 10 years, because everyone's going to want to answer with guys like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Mike Thomas, and they're not going to realize, no, Ibuka was there for a long time, and he put together really, really good year after year after year. So there's the skinny, if you will, on Ibuka. Golden, 2 years at Houston, transferred to Texas, and was one of the best receivers for Quinn Ewers. I didn't realize that Mike Woods was wide receiver 3 on the Browns right now. There's got to be an addition made here. We know how great Jerry Jeudy was for Cleveland in 2024, but Cedric Tillman, there's a little bit of uncertainty with the concussion that knocked him out for the last third of the season. And then you've got David Bell, who has been disappointing, Jamari Thrash, just a rookie last year, and then Mike Woods, who missed all of 2023 with an Achilles injury. This is a room that needs a little bit of TLC, and I could see pick 33 being a spot the Browns decide, let's bring in a new receiver. Personally, I wouldn't. Golden is my favorite receiver in this draft class, so if I had to pick one at 33, I would pick him. I don't think he gets out of round 1, but it's the draft. You never quite know with these things here. Altogether, though, it's not a very good receiver draft class. So this is don't overcomplicate it. Not a good receiver draft class. Pick 33. Don't force something that's not there with such a valuable draft pick. So before we get on out of here, who is your draft sleeper? Let me know in the comment section below. I often get asked this question. For me, I would go with a pair of Cyclones out of Iowa State. They've got the wide receiver and the cornerback. I'm blanking on, this might be my own sleeper right now. The wide receiver, Jaden Higgins. Sorry, I was like, Jaden Higgins, that's one guy out of Iowa State to keep an eye on. And then the cornerback, he's 6'4". It's like ridiculous size. Darian Porter, an incredible track star as well. So those are 2 guys in like day 2 of the draft that you could fall in love with. Before we get on out of here, though, one more time, this Browns hat is 70% off, along with a lot of other gear and merchandise at chatsports.com/CLE hat. So if you want to get some more Browns swag for a lot less than usually what it costs, go to chatsports.com/CLE hat. I've taken up way too much time of your March Madness viewing, so let's pick a card quickly and get you on out of here. Mr. Reed, which card do you want to go with?
Ace of Hearts.
Ace of Hearts. I'm going to go with 2 of Clubs. 10 of Spades. 10 of Spades. All right. I'll see you guys later.